In less than 2 years, the guillotine beheaded more than 16,000 people in France. They were not traitors, spies, or common criminals. They were ordinary citizens, nobles, priests, and even the revolution's own leaders. The Reign of Terror, between 1793 and 1794, transformed the promise of liberty, equality, and fraternity into the greatest bloodbath in French history. Welcome to the nightmare born from a dream. It was 1789. France was on the verge of collapse. King Louis XVI, unable to manage a monumental debt, governed 28 million people in a state of famine. Bread was scarce in cities. The winter of 1788 had been brutal. While the nobility banqueted at the Palace of Versailles, peasants were dying of hunger in the streets of Paris. The stage was set for one of the greatest social explosions in human history. The financial crisis resulted from decades of costly wars, including support for the American Revolution, and an aristocracy that refused to pay taxes. In May 1789, Louis XVI convened the Estates General for the first time in 175 years. The Third Estate, representing 98% of the population, decided it would no longer accept being ignored. On June 20, they swore at the tennis court, they would not disperse until France had a constitution. On July 14, 1789, the crowd in Paris stormed the Bastille, symbol of absolutist power. The news spread across France within hours. Armed peasants attacked castles and destroyed debt records. The National Assembly abolished feudalism in a single night. The king was captured and brought back to Paris. In September 1792, the monarchy was abolished and the French Republic proclaimed. But the revolution was far from over. In January 1793, Louis XVI mounted the scaffold. Before 20,000 people gathered at the Place de la Révolution, the guillotine fell at 10:22 a.m. His head was displayed to the ecstatic crowd. Months later, Queen Marie Antoinette met the same fate, accused even of incest with her own son. France was surrounded, Austria, Prussia, Spain, and Great Britain declared war. The newborn republic needed a strong leader. And he was ready. Maximilien Robespierre was born in Arras in 1758, the son of a lawyer. He was meticulous, powdered wig, impeccable clothes, and reading glasses. Called the Incorruptible, he did not drink, did not smoke, and never accepted bribes. He deeply admired the philosopher Rousseau. Elected to the National Assembly in 1789, he quickly became the voice of the people. But behind the virtuous facade lay a dangerous conviction: anyone who was not a friend of the revolution was its enemy. The Committee of Public Safety, founded in April 1793, became the true government of France. Its 12 members held absolute power of life and death. Georges Danton, the fiery orator, initially supported the excesses. Jean-Paul Marat, the journalist who shouted "more heads" through Paris streets, fueled popular hatred. But enemies were everywhere: moderate Girondins, Federalists, Vendéan rebels. Anyone could be denounced at any moment. In September 1793, the National Convention passed the law of suspects. Any citizen could be arrested simply for appearing suspicious, without evidence, without formal trial. More than 300,000 people were detained across France. The Revolutionary Tribunal operated day and night. In Paris, executions at the guillotine reached 54 in a single day. There was no longer any distinction between real and imagined enemies. The terror had officially begun. In western France, in Nantes, Representative Jean-Baptiste Carrier ordered mass drownings in the Loire River. Called Republican baptisms, groups of prisoners were loaded onto hold barges and drowned, including children, priests, and the elderly. Around 4,000 people died in Nantes alone between November 1793 and February 1794. In Lyon, 2,000 were shot. In total, the terror officially executed 16,594 people, with historians estimating up to 40,000 total deaths. The world watched in horror. In England, Edmund Burke published Reflections on the Revolution in France, warning of the dangers of radicalism. In the United States, Thomas Jefferson fell into embarrassed silence. Within France itself, fear paralyzed society. Neighbors denounced neighbors. Families betrayed one another. Correspondence was intercepted. Even the most fervent revolutionaries slept in fear of being awakened by the revolutionary police in the dead of night. In March 1794, Robespierre ordered the guillotining of his own ally Georges Danton, who had called for moderation. "You will follow me soon," Danton said as he mounted the scaffold. The prophecy came true. In July 1794, month 9 of Thermidor on the revolutionary calendar, convention members, fearing they would be next, organized a coup. On July 27, Robespierre was arrested. The following day, he mounted the same guillotine he had fed. Among the famous victims was Antoine Lavoisier, father of modern chemistry, guillotined in May 1794. When his lawyer asked for time to preserve his scientific experiments, the judge replied, "The Republic has no need for scholars." Charlotte Corday assassinated Marat in his bath and was guillotined 4 days later. The poet André Chenier died 2 days before Robespierre's fall. An estimated 72% of terror victims were peasants and workers, not aristocrats, as commonly assumed. After Thermidor, survivors of the terror were put on trial. Jean-Baptiste Carrier, the executioner of Nantes, was guillotined in December 1794. The Revolutionary Tribunal was abolished. Political prisoners were released by the thousands. The Thermidorian reaction brought investigations into the excesses. Documents revealed the full extent of the atrocities. Yet many perpetrators escaped unpunished, and exhausted France wanted to move forward, not look back. Justice was partial and selective. At the time, the French press was completely controlled by the state. Critical newspapers were shut down, journalists guillotined. Marat himself edited L'Ami du Peuple, a pamphlet calling for more deaths. Outside France, accounts arrived distorted by censorship or propaganda. The word terror was coined by the revolutionaries themselves. It was not a shame, it was official policy. Terror is nothing but swift, severe, and inflexible justice, Robespierre proclaimed before the convention in February 1794. The French Revolution and the Reign of Terror occupy a paradoxical place in historical memory. The ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity became foundations of modern democracies. But the terror exposed an eternal danger, revolutions that devour their own children. Historians like Alexis de Tocqueville and Hannah Arendt used the French Terror as a reference for understanding 20th-century revolutions. It is a story that continues to disturb because it reveals how much good can become monstrosity. The legacy of the French Revolution profoundly shaped the modern world. The Napoleonic Code, born in its wake, is the foundation of the legal system in more than 50 countries. The abolition of feudalism and hereditary nobility became a model for revolutions across Europe in the 19th century. The concepts of popular sovereignty, civil rights, and separation of powers, all germinated in 1789, are pillars of contemporary democracies. The reign of terror did not stay in the past. Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, between 1966 and 1976, followed the same pattern: purges, neighbor denunciations, destruction of intellectuals. Pol Pot's Cambodia reproduced revolutionary fanaticism with even more devastating results. Even in contemporary social media, the phenomenon of cancel culture, digital mobs destroying reputations without evidence, echoes the logic of the law of suspects of 1793, guilty until proven innocent. The French Revolution promised paradise and delivered the guillotine. But it also planted seeds that blossomed into modern democracy. It is the eternal human dilemma: the pursuit of a more just world can generate the greatest horrors. The history of 1789 reminds us that ideals without limits become ideologies without mercy. If you enjoyed this video, like it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories.